yeah, as a side note, like you see, every 2.5 hours, someone in New Zealand actually develops blindness, which is actually quite interesting. I didn't expect that either. So just as a random information here. So what do we do? What does Blind Low Vision do? It's really a very broad organization, and we do lots of different stuff. So it's not only the rehabilitation services, so classical, like what we call adaptation of daily living. So we train people, for example, how to dress themselves, how to cook dinner, how to clean up or whatever, everything what a blind person might need to live independently. This is the bread and butter business we do. Or how to teach them how to walk independently outdoors with a white cane and so on. We have a huge library, and this is probably also interesting for you guys. So we have 13,000 or 30,000 books in our library as audiobooks, and our members, this is one of our most best loved services, that they can access the library just with voice, right? I will talk about that later. We help people to get into employment, blind and low vision people. We help them with technology, for example, everything. We have specialists out there that help people with using their iPhones or their mobile phones, their computers, with accessible technology, with voice over and so on. It's also really very important and getting more and more important even so. Community support, this is the classical like volunteer business. We have lots of volunteers helping us to do recreational things with our clients. Very important. And last but not least, guide dogs. So we breed and train our own guide dogs. There's a big facility down there in Manurewa in Auckland here, where the guide dogs actually are raised and bred. And people learn about that later. What else to say? This is the last slide. I promise I will not bore you with more blind low vision stuff, but it's actually quite interesting. So we actually are one of the first in the world that developed an Amazon Alexa skill that enables our clients to access our talking book library just with Amazon Alexa. It's actually really amazing. So you can basically, our clients can just ask Alexa to access the books they want, and Alexa will read out like what's actually available for them, the newest recommendations specifically for our clients. And then they can just say, hey, Alexa, please read Harry Potter chapter so-and-so, and it will start reading. And this is really amazing. And we came from like a classical audio CD business that we send out audio CDs to our clients, random ones. They couldn't even choose what they get. And now with that Amazon Alexa skill, actually our clients for the first time can choose whatever they want. They can access 30,000 books immediately using Alexa, which is absolutely like a game changer for blind and low vision people. As I said before, puppies, we breed quite a lot of puppies every year. We train lots of people using white canes. And we also sell a lot of magnification devices for people like magnifiers and screen readers and that kind of stuff. So enough of that. Now I hope you have like an idea what Blind Low Vision New Zealand does. Now to our mission. Why do we use Salesforce in the first place? And actually, we've been on our journey for almost 3 years now. So we started back then when I started with these guys, like 2017. And the mission basically was, to increase customer experience, which was absolutely terrible. I will give you an example later. Shift our operating model to a digital way of working, and obviously also like make digital technology more accessible. This was like the broad 3 pillars of that whole journey. And just to give you an idea what that meant, especially the digitizing the operating model, before we started, we had like an 8-pager paper form for our clients to fill in and sign up as a member. You can imagine that a paper form for blind people is probably not the ideal customer experience and very hard to fill in. And this was actually one of the first things we tackled. We digitized that sign-up process and made it accessible using internet and whatever, which made a big difference. Yeah, but actually what that meant in the first place, we had to bring 17 different legacy systems we used, really random stuff, everything from a fully blown Microsoft Dynamics, which was our main client CRM system, to random spreadsheets and home-cooked Access databases. You see a couple of examples there, like we used Razor's Edge, Volgistics, you name it, random stuff. And the mission basically was to rule them all with Salesforce and bring everything onto one platform. So, and as you can imagine, that as such is a massive, massive program of work. And it was a data migration project in the first place. Yeah, and you know where Salesforce is really good at is selling the dream, right? And so basically our first impression was, awesome, let's just chuck in Salesforce. This will solve all of our problems. They really had this amazing presentations that Salesforce pulled off when they first met them. And this was basically the dream. We buy the Salesforce rocket and will directly fly to the summit and solve all of our problems. As you might probably know, the reality was quite different. So yeah, it rather looked like this. And as I said, we started with the volunteers and client registration part, which seemed to be the low-hanging fruit and the quick wins. And the further we progressed, we started then with client service delivery. We put in really complicated processes, and we use Field Service Lightning, for example, which we use for our client service delivery. And basically, the experience was really quite strenuous, as you might see here, that Astro's sweating. Yeah, it was the same for us. We massively were struggling with adoption. We were massively struggling with just overwhelming people, because they still used their pen and paper diaries, and then they suddenly had Salesforce and were supposed to use smartphones for their appointment booking, which basically was very, very hard. Fundraising, that is a whole different story. I could talk about the whole day just about fundraising. That was a very, very bad experience in the first place, because we got a fully custom built solution, and that didn't work in the beginning. And it was very, very hard to get that to work. And then as you see, guide dog services was almost the last one we tackled. And it was really we said, oh my God, how do we do that? And why, you might think, why is guide dogs so complicated? Basically, guide dogs as such is, we thought it was almost impossible. Our guide dog team is almost like another company within our company or organization. They really worked almost like in a silo by themselves. They had completely different processes. And I can't stress that enough, breeding and training guide dogs are really highly, highly complex, and it's very scientific, and it's really a niche, right? And the whole team, they worked so manually. They all had their spreadsheets and paper-based forms, tons of paper-based forms. Every dog had still a paper file in one of whatever, in our vault somewhere, and really quite terrible. And to be honest, we started the process and it failed. We just couldn't do it. It was too hard. We thought it would at least take 3 years to get all their stuff, what they wanted, into Salesforce. And we just thought, hey, look, just going to be too costly, too difficult, and we can't do it. So this project basically was stopped. Of course, big frustration with the team, and we continued with some other parts of the business. But the first attempt failed, to be very honest with you. As an interesting side note, you see only about 4 out of 10 puppies become a guide dog. And why is that? It's just that the rules, or basically the criteria we apply are so strict that that dog has to go through all this cycle here, from breeding, early development, puppy development, guide dog training, graduation, and so on. And after every one of these steps here, there's they have to go through an evaluation and an assessment. And so you can imagine the funnel gets narrow, and more dogs drop out because they are not good, either because of health or because of their temperament. And around only 4 puppies actually make it through that cycle here. So then, what do we do? Should we just stop the project and leave them to their paper forms? No. And then we really had one quite amazing moment. Our new CEO that started with the Blind Low Vision New Zealand came from the Canadian CNIB, which is basically the same organization in Canada. And he basically gave us the recommendation to just get in touch with these guys. And we had one call. We talked to CNIB, to the person that does Salesforce over there. Yeah, and he basically just said, hey, guys, have you looked on the App Exchange? There is like an amazing app out there, dog tracker, client tracker. Just have a look. This might exactly what we were looking at, or looking for, basically. And we couldn't really believe that, that something so specific, so niche, so specific is actually on the App Exchange. And we never had a look before, to be honest. So we never searched for that. We didn't really think that this even might be possible. And yeah, we looked for it and basically were pretty blown away, right? So it really is a fully blown solution specifically for assistant dog or guide dog organizations. We think it was made for Guide Dogs California by a company. And yeah, they obviously put that onto the App Exchange. They have a subscription-based model. You can just either buy it one-off, so you pay, I think, $50,000 and you can have it for life, or you can pay, it's a staged thing. You can pay per user or per organization and basically subscribe it per month, per year, per whatever you like. So yeah, and what we did is basically we just put that onto our dev org, onto our UAT environment, and gave it a good test, and it was really amazing. So we couldn't really believe it. Especially it's consistent of two parts. So it's dog tracker and client tracker. The client tracker part is to manage the applicants that want to have a dog, and the dog tracker part is the one they use to manage the dogs. And especially the dog part, that was just that blew us away. It was really straight out of the box. At least 85% of all of our requirements were immediately met. It was amazing. You can do everything. You can track the dog's health, the location where the dog actually is, the food, the pedigree. You see this big tree, the pedigree tree with all the parents and grandparents of the dog, everything what our team wanted. And it was really quite easy to customize the rest of the, let's say, 15% that was not there. And it was really almost only a couple of fields we needed. And obviously, they used some other terminology that we didn't use in our organization, but we just translated that. And it was really up and running within a couple of weeks, which was amazing. The other part, client tracker, that was a bit involved. That was actually a bit annoying because they had lots of automations already in that managed package. And not everything what they had in there was actually suitable for us. Reason being that this was specifically built for assistance dog organization that also not only work with blind people, but for example with American soldiers, veteran soldiers, I think, and that they get a dog as a companion dog or whatever. And some parts were just not really what we needed. But yeah, we still made it we customized it a little bit. We changed our own processes a little bit to make it work. And that took a little bit longer, the adoption phase. But in the end, we now happily use it, and it's actually really awesome. So we didn't really expect that at all. So you see, I think I'm almost at the end of that stuff already. But what are the key learnings? So I think most importantly, what I can share with you is that before you consider to put in a managed package from the App Exchange, especially something like this, a fully blown solution for a specific thing, is you need to get management buy-in very early. And why is that? Because you have to accept that it's not going to be 100% fit to your organization. Probably you have to accept that 80 awesome is good enough. So 80% is good enough. And basically rather consider to change your internal processes and get management buy-in to push that through than going down a custom built route. What we, for example, did with fundraising. So we built a completely fully customized fundraising solution, which took us ages, was really costly, didn't really work, only to get these last 15% of the requirements, which probably would have been avoided if we just had something out the box. So the last one in the middle, always search on the App Exchange before you start a Salesforce project. This is probably also the key one. We didn't do that, unfortunately. This is why we failed in the first place. But yeah, luckily enough, in the end, we got that. So much for Dog Tracker. App Exchange. So since that good experience with App Exchange, we really discovered like some other amazing gems on that App Exchange, which we also didn't really expect. And just to give you a couple of examples, what we really use, we found a component which is called Flow Email Composer. And all what that thing does is you can have a button in Salesforce, and if you click that button, a pre-populated email template in the flow comes up. You can change the content of that email as you like and send it out. And this might seem really easy for you guys, or hey, why do you need that? But for us, being an organization with lots of visually impaired users, this has been like a massive pain for our users to go into these little fiddly icons in an email composer thing, click, select a template. Just imagine if you are blind and have to do that, that is absolutely almost impossible. And with this feature, we can just have one button on a record. They click on that, they get this pop-up, and they can just send out like an email, and they love it. They absolutely love it. It's completely for free. This is from Salesforce Labs. Doesn't cost anything, and yeah, our users absolutely love it, and it made a big difference. The same thing, also very specific to our organization, that main search in Salesforce is not really accessible for people that use like VoiceOver, or very, very hard to use. And it always has been a problem that our users couldn't find our clients in the system because we have so many duplicates and whatnot. And this thing here called Record Hunter, we also only recently discovered that on the App Exchange. This is basically a custom search, like a Lightning app. You can build that. Just put these components onto the onto the screen, and you can customize these search results and make filters and everything that it only looks for specific users. And what we use it for, we can use that to filter out only our clients and not, for example, all the other contacts like donors or volunteers or whatever we have in the system as well. And we have 500,000 contacts in there, so it's actually really a lot. And this helped our visually impaired team massively to just find the correct contact record in Salesforce, and they also really love it. As I said, also for free, just from Salesforce Labs. And the last example I want to give you is that launch flow in modal. Very similar, and I think Dave can talk about that later as well. He has like a similar thing that actually Gravity Lab developed. But also a problem for us is that our users just need like a button, a simple button, what they can just like find with their VoiceOver software, click, and then what we do a lot is these screen flows opens up. And with this feature, this launch flow in modal, you can basically place a button onto the Lightning page layout wherever you want, and then configure what it should do. And when you click on that, then we start like a little wizard and can automate a lot of things, especially for our visually impaired users. We use that a lot to automate things like creating a note or activity on some record and do something else in the background. Also very, very simple, but makes a massive difference. Also just for free on the App Exchange. Yeah, and this I think was the end of our story. I was planning for like a live demo, but not sure if we still have time for that, or if I should hand over to Dave, because he also have like some things to tell you. If we have time later, I can also come back and show you like what actually Dog Tracker and Client Tracker looks like. But yeah, it's really. What do you say, Joanne? Do we have time or not? Or
yeah, I reckon you've got time. I think there's plenty of interest in you to just jump in there, and I'm sure Dave is quite happy to give up a few minutes.
I will keep it brief, but I will just show you like how that looks like. That you can imagine better like what that is. Just 1 second. And I will share my screen with you again. I think I have to do that again, probably. We'll just quickly present again. I will just do the whole window. Great. Can everyone see Salesforce?
Yep, it's come up now.
Okay, perfect. So this is dog tracker, and what I did is I opened up a dog record, and as you see, you can upload pictures of puppies and dogs. I used Koa here, our beloved Salesforce mascot, and it's pretty much exactly like a contact record, but it's a dog, so it's a custom object. Obviously, you see like all these things like personal information about the dog, like the breed, the gender, the birth date, and so on. Where it is like the place, team information. You see like what kind of diet the dog is on, and just you see this thing. This is a bit like the thing what came with the managed package. This is obviously like a visual force thing or whatever they put in there. It's like a custom built list view just to pull out the diet ones and the dog weight, which was a bit strange. It's more like classic-y, but actually our people love it. And yeah, and you see like normally what you would see here is if that dog, that's a test dog, you would see the whole pedigree, like going back over 6 or what generations, and you can directly click through these things to get down to the where the dog actually came from, which is very important for our breeding, and that they know what the parents are. And what else can you do? Like you have like also that health stuff, obviously, like you can see the weight development of the dogs and a lot of stuff. What is very specific for guides, for dog tracker, is that they use record types heavily. So if you create like one of these health and wellness objects, it comes with a bunch of different options here. So you see like you can record pretty much everything: exercise sessions, food, health clearances, medical events, orthopedics, weight, whelping medication. And just if you think about all that stuff was also required from our team, it would have been a nightmare to actually configure or set that up in the first place. And this just came like that out of the box. And it was really awesome. It did exactly what we needed and what our team wanted. It was a bit strange that this is like these record types. We didn't use that before much, and they seem to use it heavily, but there's a reason for that. And in this case, it really makes sense. But it was a bit like we had to get used to that concept. Same with dog forms. You can create billions of different kinds of dog forms for behavior checklists and puppy border forms and feedback and whatnot. Everything what is needed to actually like represent our process, this cycle for the dog, where it goes through. For example, this is very important. They do like a so-called behavioral checklist every couple of weeks. And depending on how the dog develops, this is a good indicator for them if that dog is going to make it through that process or not. And of course, like the final qualified stage is when it finally graduates with a client. And if it doesn't meet like a specific whatever threshold here, it's withdrawn and can't get a guide dog. Well, and yeah, locations is just where it is placed. You can see where the dog actually is at the client's home or adopter's home or wherever it is. And yeah, it's quite like fine-grained and whatever, but our team worked like that. And they used to do paper forms for every single one of these things. And now they can do everything in Salesforce, which is great. So yeah, they really love it. And just quickly going into that other one, in that client tracker. Client tracker is a little bit different. So client tracker basically holds the information about the application of a client. So they can have multiple, and in that client tracker, they really hold all the same stuff. You can upload pictures. You can basically have all these forms and evaluations in there that have to be provided by the client, like an application, the phone screening, assessment, and you name it. Also heaps of different kinds of record types there. And it was really funny for us to see that all that stuff here, like pre-training report and interview form, was exactly like what they do internally as well. But just as I said before, it was just like called a bit different. But as such, these forms were pretty much exactly the same. Minus a couple of fields we use and they didn't, but we just created them. Actually quite cool. Yeah, work orders, we use that because we use field service lightning. So as soon as like a client is actually met, we would create a work order, and then field service lightning does some scheduling with appointments and so on. But yeah, so it looks pretty standard, as you might see. But I'll just show you one more thing, and this is what I mentioned before. This is actually like our email template thing, Flow Email Composer. This button, just one simple click of a button, pulls up like a email template, including a pre-populated link. And this thing, we use form assembly for that. This actually like is sent out to the client, including attachments. You can also have attachments up there. And this goes to a form. And usually this would be pre-populated out of Salesforce. This is in form assembly. And the client just fills in the rest of it. And this is basically the application process, which used to be like a very, very, very long paper form. Now they can do everything online in that form, directly hooked up to Salesforce. The information gets directly sent back into Salesforce and creates one of these forms and evaluations. And it helped massively. So it really reduced paperwork at a tenfold. It was, they're really like, the team loves that feature. Yeah, I think this is like a short overview what it can do. Obviously, there's lots more to it. You can do breeding and things. It automatically creates like puppies when you are mating certain dogs. And I think I said that before. What we were hoping to use it with is basically to use Einstein predictions to predict if a guide dog is going to make it or not, or even if a guide dog will be a good breeding stock for breeding guide dogs. And this is going to be really interesting to see if guide dog comes up with a recommendation which probably we didn't see, or if you can analyze data which we didn't really recognize yet, and what will come out. And yeah, this is the next thing what we are going to do, basically.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So much to it. I know if you have any questions, please fire away.
So Anna's just asking whether you have any in-app type guidance.
Yeah, in-app, we would love to use that. That's a very good question. The problem with in-app guidance is that it is not accessible for our staff. This is really the most frustrating thing ever. Everything what we do in Salesforce has to be accessible, and not only for screen readers like JAWS or whatever, but also for low vision users with magnification devices like Zoom text and the likes. So, and these guys are so different, like their requirements are very different. Zoom text users that blow up their screen need everything on the left side. So they as soon as something is popping up on the right, lower, whatever area, they don't even notice that because it's not visible for them. Same with Zoom or JAWS, which is like one of these screen readers. They just don't, they wouldn't find it if you don't know that it is there. So unfortunately, we can't use these things. Which is a bit of a pity because our sighted users would benefit of it, but of course we need to be accessible for everyone, so we can't use it, which is really a shame. Yeah.
Nice. So what document generation tool are you using?
Again, sorry, I didn't get the first one.
What document generation tool are you using?
Yeah, a very good question. Document generation, that is also, we found it as well on the App Exchange. So we found a tool called TS Documents, which is a smaller company from India, I think. We used to use Nintex and Konga and all these ones. Obviously, they are really expensive, and we pretty much only need a very specific feature, generating Word documents. We don't need all that other stuff like digital signatures and whatever. And for our needs, this TS Documents is actually perfect. It just generates documents. You can convert Salesforce records in Word documents, Excel, in spreadsheets, whatever you like. And it uses Google Docs as the middleware. So it's really easy. You set up the template, you define the merge fields, and then this TS Documents just populates that stuff and generates the documents using Google Docs and saves it back as a Word document in Salesforce, which is really great. And it works really well for us. And it's reasonably cheaper, a lot cheaper than Nintex or whatever. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So is there any other questions around digitizing guide dogs or any other kind of App Exchange that Hendrik hasn't yet mentioned but potentially doesn't know he needs to mention? Cool. All right, so we'll move on to Dave. Hendrik, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you very much.
You know, Hendrik is available. If anything occurs to you afterwards, so you think, I wish I'd asked Hendrik that, then please reach out and we can ask Hendrik direct, or if you want to connect directly with Hendrik, again, happily to do an introduction as well for you. So yeah, thanks very much, Hendrik. That was really cool.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Cool. David, over to you. Do a bit of intro, who you are, what you do.
I'll do that. That's okay. Thanks, Hendrik. That was way more interesting than what I'm going to talk about. So I wish I could talk about guide dogs all day, but I have to talk about App Exchange. So that's okay. I'll share my screen. Thanks for that, though. I appreciate it. Where are we? This one? This one. Okay. So I've been asked to talk about. So my name is David. I'm from Gravity Lab. I've been to a few of here. I think this is the third time I've seen Hendrik talk about this. So this is really interesting. I've been asked to talk a bit more about the App Exchange, and that's the last slide. And what the App Exchange is and how you can use it. And kind of a few more bits and pieces that aren't really App Exchange, but Salesforce aren't on the call, so I'll talk about them anyway. So what is the App Exchange? It's basically, it's an app store. And what's cool about App Exchange is it was launched before the Apple App Store. So the App Exchange was was being used in 2006, and I think the Apple App Store launched in 2008. So it's kind of one of the very first app stores you can, I'm going to say that without, having being able to back that up, but it was before Apple's App Store. So I reckon that's pretty cool. The app's a security check by Salesforce. So it's quite hard to get an app on the App Exchange. We've tried to do it a few times. I'm not sure if we've ever managed to do it, but all the apps go through security checking by Salesforce. And then after that point, they're reviewed by users. So one of the more useful things to do on an App Exchange is when you're looking for a specific app for a specific purpose is checking the reviews, because they're usually pretty people give pretty harsh reviews to them if they're not very good. So if you get lots of 1 stars, you'll find that people don't you'll see it pretty easily. There's a dedicated section for non-profit apps. So the volunteer apps or the donation management apps or anything else you might like. So obviously this is a non-profit user group, so there is a dedicated area for those apps, which is quite cool. And there's lots of free tools that come out of it as well. So obviously the things like the guide dog app would cost money, but the email sending app wouldn't cost money, and I think that's really great as well. So you can build up that enhancement. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money paying someone to code something up when you can just install something in a few minutes. And I think that it's pretty compelling use case. I'm not going too fast, am I, Joe? All good? Am I still on the call?
Slide, everyone, just wave at him, comment, tell him to slow down, ask for more information.
Absolutely, just jump in. So just some tips to using the App Exchange well. So again, reviews are super important. So look at reviews. If there aren't any reviews, it probably hasn't been around that long. If there are tons of reviews and they're all like number 5 or 4 to 5, that's probably a pretty good app to look at. Be aware of pricing. So some of them are free, which is great. Some of them have per license cost. So that doesn't mean if you've got 280 users like Hendrik does, you have to pay 280 licenses. You might only want 10 licenses, and you might be able to pay 10 licenses, and that's okay. And some of them might be organization specific. So you might pay $500 a year for an organization, something along those lines. So just be really aware of pricing. Salesforce Labs is apps developed by Salesforce employees. I think that's what they call it. And those are just really useful free apps. I think that was that email tool, I think, a Salesforce Labs tool that Hendrik showed, which means it's developed by someone from Salesforce. It won't be necessarily supported by Salesforce, but it'll be developed by someone who's in the organization. There's a whole lot more. I've got a couple more I'm going to recommend as well from Salesforce Labs in the later slide. Remember to ask on the Power of Us hub. So if you've got a question, you're like, hey, what's a good app for this? The Power of Us hub is the nonprofit success pack central forum location area. So jump on there and ask questions about it. Like there's heaps of people going to give you advice on it. There's it's a really good resource if you're a nonprofit success pack user to ask on there. So just definitely take advantage of that. And people will have had the same problem that you've got, and they'll have a solution for you. So definitely do that. And also find out the support model on something, because if you're building the thing about risk, if you're choosing an app to use that you're going to rely your whole business on or your whole organization on, you really need to know what happens if that app breaks one day. So what does the support contract look like? Do you have to pay more for support? What time zone is it in? Because if it's if it's based in the UK, it's very hard to get support at in a decent time. So be really aware of support. I think that's incredibly important, because you can increase your risk dramatically if you've installed a tool like this and are relying on it for your operation. Just some apps I've recommended. I'm really keen if you guys can all throw some apps in the chat that you recommend as well. I'm really keen to hear what everyone else is using. So if every new org I put in the adoption dashboards, and that just lets you see who's logging into Salesforce really quickly. You can build your own, but this is essentially just a plugin that gives you a whole pile of pre-built reports, and it's incredibly useful for tracking who's actually logging in and doing and using Salesforce. Trial Tracker is another good one. I think these first two are actually, most of these are actually Salesforce Labs ones. Trial Tracker lets you integrate your Trailhead account into Salesforce. So you're able to see, you're able to assign trail mixes or badges to your team to do, see who's doing them, see what the leaderboard looks like, what's the most popular. So that's really good if you're trying to skill up your team inside Trailhead. Trailhead, of course, being the Salesforce learning management system that they offer to help upskill with Salesforce and other tools. Lightning sharing is one I came across the other day, because on Lightning, I don't think the share button's been put back in yet. So Lightning sharing adds in a share button and lets you share records manually, which used to be able to do in Classic. Surveyforce is another really good Salesforce Labs tool, which means you can build surveys natively on Salesforce and then present them inside a Salesforce site, and that's quite good as well. And that's really also extendable. So not only can you build a survey with the tools they've got, but you can also, if you've got a bit of coding background, you can write your own sort of questions and your own sort of inputs. So that's quite cool as well. And then another one, just one for the nonprofits, is inventory management. So if you don't want to go down the road of having some sort of warehousing system or maybe something like Vend, you can just manage your inventory inside Salesforce with an inventory manager, and that's quite a good one as well. Any other comment? Anything jumps up on the chat, Joe? You can.
So Anna Laughlin's called out a good one, which I've used also as well, is Field Trip.
Oh yeah, Field Trip's good. And Anna, do you want to tell us how you use that?
Well, it's been slightly deprecated in terms of you've got where is this used now, which does actually help. But particularly if you've got a large number of records, it gives you the percentage of times that fields have been filled out. So, you may have an edge use case, but, if you've got 1% of those records being filled out in that field, at least you know that. So,
absolutely.
So what I've done in the past is I've actually ended up, combining like half a dozen fields together and just capturing them in a wrong text field or something, so I can delete those edge cases.
Cool, thanks for that. Yeah, I use Field Trip a fair bit as well. It definitely, if you want to if you end up, you get to an organization and they've got 400 fields on an object, you can pretty much guarantee that most of those, like a lot of those, aren't being used, right? Especially over time. And what's cool about Field Trip is you can set a date range on it. You can say, show me anything that hasn't been filled in and modified in the last, say, 6 months. And that means you can really drill in on what's actually being used now. Field Trip's a great tool.
Yeah. So the other one that Anna's also mentioned is Smart Weather Forecaster. I've not heard of that one.
How does that work, Anna? I haven't tried that either.
Okay, so this was at my old company. I was talking to a bunch of users, and they wanted to be able to, when they were talking to somebody, talk about the local weather.
That's awesome.
And so it's just like a really simple little component that you can drop in on the page. And if there's if the on the contact, for example, if their address is in there, it will take that city, or it'll take the company's city. And so it's just one of those simple things that salespeople could use. And interestingly, the original iteration when they released it only had Fahrenheit. And so I gave them a really bad review because I'm like, that's a waste of time for me. And they reacted to getting a 1-star review and came back and rolled out a new version with Celsius. They'd kind of only been thinking of the American market. And yeah, so then I gave them a 5-star review.
Good. That's awesome. Is that free as well?
Yes.
Oh, great. That's a really cool use case. It's like kind of a little bit of adding value as an admin, right? Like you can add value to your salespeople really easily. Just dropping something like that on the page, you know? That's really cool. Thanks, Anna. Any others, Joe?
No, nobody else is
Crack on.
checking one in.
So the other ones I'm just going to chuck in. These are some more like kind of more heavy lifting admin ones that I find really useful. These aren't from the App Exchange. They're from another site called unofficialsf.com, which I think is actually run by someone who's now at Salesforce, or at least helped run by someone who's at Salesforce. But from the first one is like called Mass Action Scheduler, and that's really cool because it lets you build. You know how if you've got a coder, if you've got some developers in the house, you might build a daily job that goes and does something on your platform. Mass Action Scheduler means you can build your own schedules without having to have a developer. So you can say, every morning I want to go and send an email to everyone who hasn't paid their bill. And you can use Mass Action Scheduler to schedule that job and to base it on a report or a list view or something like that, something else like that, and to do that every day. So I use that all over the place for daily jobs. Declarative lookup rollup summary, apart from having a really terrible name, is a way of building rollups. So normally for a rollup, you need a master-child relationship, and I don't really like those because they're confusing and they hurt my brain. But this tool lets me build a rollup based on anything with a lookup on it, so I can just do it on the normal lookup fields, and incredibly powerful as well. You can change batch sizes. You can be really specific about when you want the rollups to work. It's actually more powerful than the Salesforce one because it lets you do concatenation. So for one of my clients, I wanted to put all the children's names into a field, so I just used this to concatenate all the kids' names together, and that's really good as well. But so that if you need a roll up, you look into something like that. And data table FSC, I don't know what FSC means, but it's a way of putting into a flow a list of records. So if you went and said in a flow, you're going to got a list of, let's say again the same client, they've got a list of people attending the zoo. And this is all the people who are on this membership. I can provide a list of them, say here's all the people that are coming that are on this membership, and they can tick which ones of those are actually attending. So it lets you return a table of records inside of Flow, and then do an action on them when you go to the next screen. So if you're looking for something that lets you give a bit more data on a Flow screen, definitely have a look at data table. It's really, really powerful. Again, use at your own risk because they're not from App Exchange, but they're really highly, these three tools are really highly recommended. There's lots of people using them, and I think all the code's open source. So if there's ever any problems with security, they'd be picked up pretty quickly. But also not backed up by me either. But use at your own risk. The other thing I wanted to talk about today quickly, because Salesforce mentioned it, is Salesforce Pro Bono. And this is kind of App Exchange related, but I'm just going to mention it anyway. So if you're a nonprofit, you can ask for help from a Salesforce professional, i.e. someone in Salesforce. So jump on that website, salesforce.org/volunteers/pro bono. You can get paired up with a Salesforce professional. So if you've got a little project, and again, there's some guidelines down here that will help you get this project picked up. So it's all free. Define a really specific project. Don't say, I want to implement a accounting software. That's way too broad and take way too long. So you might say, I want to have these five reports set up based on this data. And that'll be much easier to pick up. So define a narrow specific project, something that can be completed within a modest time frame, 10 to 20 hours. Doesn't include third-party application setup or integration because those are always fraught. You don't want it to be time sensitive because this could take a while to be delivered. You're not guaranteed to be delivered either. So they may not match you. But if you've got a project that you're coming up that you think you could get some help with, fits under about 20 hours, definitely have a look at this tool at this website because you can get some really good help out of this. And I think that's it. Any questions on any of that? I haven't done any cool demos today like Hendrik, but...
So the only other comment, Anna has said that there's also another roll-up one called Roll-Up Helper.
So I've used both of those, and just as someone, I've spent a lot of time with Roll-Up Helper. I think, number one, Roll-Up Helper is paid after a certain level, and it caused me massive issues because it wasn't optimized really well. So we tried using it, and we got massive record lock issues on that one. Declarative lookup rollup summary is a lot tighter. But again, to be really careful about it, if you did build a massive system around declarative lookup rollup summary, you can slow your system right down, and there can be record lock or record skew issues. But record rollup help is better because it has more support. So that's the only thing I would say about it. You can pay for, because you're paying for it, you'll get more support from them. But I didn't find it as good. But definitely, like it's probably easy. And that one might be slightly easier to use as well.
Cool. And it looks like Hendrik's rushed off now to the App Exchange, and he is now looking up the mass action schedule. No, sorry, the non-Salesforce official, non-official, whatever it was. Looking for the mass action scheduler. He's gone, cheers, Dave, thanks. He'll give it a spin. It's exactly what he was looking for. So
give me a shout if you need a hand with that, Hendrik, because I've spent a lot of time on that. It's really cool. One of the cool things about Mass Action Schedule is you can build it on a list view. So as you've got, let's say you want it to, or a report. So you say, I want to run it with everyone with a edit date of today, then it'll run on that. And then that'll change every day. So you don't need to hard code anything or be smart about anything. You can just build a report. And as long as that report has an ID on the screen, you can use it. So it's really cool. Great. That was me done. Joe, back to you.
Oh, okay, right. So is there any questions? Has anybody got any burning desires or issues? We have some big hitters on this call at the moment, the likes of Ken Holly, so we can always feel free to pick his brain, see he reacts, see he knows. I can see Johanna Matson, who has got, she's doing some amazing stuff within her org. Yeah, any questions at all that you want to pull up some of these hard hitters? I've worked with Mark as well. I know he's sitting there quietly in the corner, and he's delivered some amazing stuff, some amazing functionality to instances as well. So this is kind of, I guess I'm opening it up now for a free-for-all. And also, is there any ideas on what you'd like to see that we can pass on to Kristen for what you'd like to see presented here in the not-for-profit space? Is there a gap somewhere? Do you want some more information? Do you want a training session on something? Like what can we do to help support more for this community? And also, obviously, we've got an awesome tight little group that's come in today. How else can we support the community and get more people to come and join in these and listen to these amazing people?
Hendrik has a suggestion showing how nonprofits can use Einstein. I think, Anna, have you had a session on that, or have you got one coming up?
Yes, we had, I think it was just last week, had a session specifically on that with Melissa Hildes, who specialises in nonprofits. So so she has a blog, and she also presents to groups as well. So it wasn't the Wellington nonprofit group; it was my larger group that she was presenting to. But she does specialise in nonprofits, and yes, so she's got a blog, because I referred to somebody on the Trailblazer community to that just actually in the last few days. So Hendrik, I'll find that for you and share it with you.
Fantastic, thanks, Anna.
But there's also we've got the recording as well. Cool. If you want to go back to that, you can actually watch that recording of hers.
Yeah. If you want to share that link, Anna, I can share that out.
Cool. I've just got to remember it's where it is. Yep.
That's okay. Just not going to have to do it right now, but if the next day or so, that would be awesome. Any other questions? Any other burning desires? Anybody putting a not-for-profit in at the moment and has got any tips that they might like to share about what they've come across? Mark, have you got any tips? You're on mute.
Sorry, maybe I need to have a session on how to use Google Hangouts. Hendrik, I was interested to know the fundraising issues. Any specific areas that or learnings that came out of that?
Yeah, so the biggest issue as such is that we don't use non-profit success packs. So we could do a session just around that, but you always should use that as at least at the baseline. So to be very honest with you, we were counseled, or we were told like that non-for-profit success pack wasn't suitable for our organization because it was too big or whatever, or too specific. And now we ended up like with a fully custom-built solution, which tries to replicate lots of stuff from non-profit success pack, or even uses some parts of it, like this relationship object, to other people. But obviously, it's really hard to maintain. We don't get any updates. Things break all the time. So for us, with a really like small IT team, it's just almost impossible to maintain that custom code. And so I think it was just like, because they didn't counsel us correctly, we went down that custom build path, and now of course we are stuck, and basically we couldn't just like install non-profit success pack and use that, because our model is completely different. We use like for donations, for example, we don't use opportunities, but we use like a donation object, and so we can't use all of these great things like forecasting and you name it. That just comes out of the box, right? So,
Well, cool. Nobody else? Anybody got anything else? Awesome.
I just wanted to say thanks to Joe for helping organise this today. Joe normally runs the Auckland user group, but Kristen, who runs the non-profit group, has done a back-end, obviously. So Joe just really stepped up today and really helped us get this across the line. So big thanks to Joe for sorting us out today. Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah.
So much. It's a huge amount of work, and you did it without even having to be asked, really. So thanks a lot for that.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. And on that, we are going to give you half an hour back in your day. So anybody who needs to get home, jump in that traffic. We're assuming if you're in Auckland, the Auckland Harbour Bridge is open and that you can actually move around the city. If not, you're feeling lucky, because I think the traffic was an hour and a half to get from Albany through to the town. And it's only a 15-minute drive in that time of the morning. So awesome. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and watch this space for any upcoming meetings.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.